Hey everyone, Android Cemetery here. Welcome back to part 3 of the Sci-fi Crate tutorial series. In today's lesson, we're going to be adding a bevel to our objects and UV unwrapping our model, ready for export into Substance Painter. Okay, so right now we want to add a bevel to most of these objects over here. And the reason why we want to do that is because right now, if we render this out, light isn't going to reflect off of these edges. And if we want this model to look realistic, we're going to have to add a bevel to these edges. That way, light will reflect off of it and it'll look a lot more realistic. So I'm going to select this object, add modifier, and I'm going to add a bevel modifier. You can see right now it looks a lot more realistic with light being reflected off of these edges. If we turn it off over here, you can see it doesn't look very realistic. It's going to turn real time back on. So I'm going to change the limit method to angle. And the reason why we want to do this is because we don't want the bevel to affect every single edge. You can see that we have a bit of a artifact over here, and that's because it's affecting all of the edges. We don't want it to affect every single edge, we just want to affect the angles. So limit method, angle. So you can see when we do that, we have a bit of an issue here. This angle here is being beveled, but this top angle isn't being beveled. And we just have to lower the angle threshold. So these angles here, they're all below 30 degrees, but this angle is most likely lower than that. So if we just lower this to maybe around here, you can see that these angles are now being affected. And I think all the rest are fine as well. So something else we want to do is go to shading and harden normals. Now I can see it says enable auto smooth. So we have to enable auto smooth as well. So auto smooth, enable that. And the reason why we turn on harden normals is just because sometimes we can get some shading issues, and harden normals helps get rid of those shading issues. So with that out of the way, let's apply a bevel to each of these. So one way of doing it is to just select the objects and then add another bevel. Or what we can do is use this bevel and transfer this modifier to the other geometry. So if we want to do that, we have to select the geometry that we want to apply the bevel on. So this one, this one, this one, this one, and also these two. So pretty much all of it except for this. We don't need a bevel for the handle. So with all those selected, we want to select the box last, go to object, make links, modifiers. Now I can see that the bevel has now been applied to all of the other objects, but another issue has arisen, and that is that when we transfer the bevel, the mirror has turned off. And that's an easy fix, we can just turn the mirror back on. So select this object, add modifier, mirror, select this object, add modifier, mirror. And I want to mirror it on the Y and the X with this one. Same with these two. Add modifier, mirror. I want to mirror it on the X and on the Z. And then same with this one. Add modifier, mirror. No, and last one. Add modifier, mirror. So the bevels are a bit strong with a few of these, so we'll have to go in and adjust it. You can also see that we haven't enabled auto smooth on a few of these objects, so we'll have to do that as well. So select this object. Auto smooth is fine with that one, and the bevel is pretty good with that as well, so I think I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to select this one. It says enable auto smooth for the hardened normals to work. So I'm going to turn on auto smooth, go back to modifiers, and I'm just going to turn the bevel down just a bit, something like 0.03. Maybe I'll turn this one down as well. Something like 0.06. I'm going to select this one. Also, enable auto smooth. And then I'm going to turn the amount down. And if you feel like moving the slider up and down, the numbers are too high, you can always hold down shift. And you can see that now you can slowly adjust the amount while holding down shift. I'm going to make it something like 0.006. And now these ones are way too strong. I'm going to select that. I'm going to move this down while holding down shift to something like 0.006. Going to select this hinge, move this down as well. 0.004. And I'm going to lower the angle because you can see that the bevel is now affecting not just this angle, but these angles as well. So I'm just going to make it about 30 degrees. Going to select this one, going to apply the auto smooth. Back to modifier. Going to change the amount to something like 0.013. And I think that's it for the beveling. I also forgot to mention that you can adjust the amount of segments that you create. It's a little bit hard to see it here, so I'm going to go into my object properties, viewport display, and I'm going to turn on wireframe. You can really see what's going on here now. So now if I go back to modifiers, and if I add more segments, you can see that it's adding 2 segments now to the bevel. You can add as many as you want. For this, we really just want it to be 1. So I'm going to go back to object properties, turn off wireframe. I want to delete faces that we're not going to see. So I'm going to select this object, tab to go into edit mode. I'm going to isolate this object by pressing / on the numpad. And you can see that if I toggle with / on the numpad, there's a face here that we're not going to see. So there's no point in having it be there. So 3 for face mode, select this face, X, delete face, / on the numpad to go back, and then press tab. There's also a face over here, press tab, gonna isolate, and you can see we can't select this one because this is the mirror. This is the original object. So I'm gonna select this face, X, delete face, / on the numpad to go back, tab to go out of edit mode. With this hinge, we're also not gonna see anything, but I think we're gonna leave the hinge just in case. Gonna select this part of the handle, / on the numpad, tab to go into edit mode. I'm just gonna select this face, X, delete face, / again, tab to get out of edit mode. And again on these hinges. So select the hinges, tab, / on the numpad, select these 2 faces. Actually, these in the mirrors, so these won't be affected. Select this face, X, delete face. And you can see that's applied now on the mirrors as well. / tab to get out of edit mode. Okay, so I've gone and named all of the separate pieces off screen. You don't have to do this for this project, it's not necessary, but if you want this to be organized, then feel free to pause the video and you can name all your separate objects. Okay, so one thing that we want to do before we do our UV mapping is we want to press A to select everything, Control A, and we want to apply our scale to every object. Now you can see that one of our objects, the latch, our bevel has actually changed a bit, and that was because we didn't apply our scale to the object. So there might be a chance that some of your objects, because we didn't apply the scale to all of them, we may need to modify the bevel. So we select this object, and if we just lower the bevel down, something like this, also lower the angle down to around 26, and that works. The rest of my objects are fine, but chances are you might have to modify the bevel on some of your objects after we apply the scale to all of them. And last thing we want to do before we start our UV map is we want to apply the bevel on all of our objects. So if we select the crate, go into the modifier properties, and we just want to apply our bevel. We want to apply them on all of our objects. Okay, so once we've done that, we're ready to start our UV map. So let's go into the UV map window here, UV editing, and we want to select our crate, tab, press 2 to go into edge select mode. So we want to add seams to this because at the moment the UV map is very stretched. If we hold down Alt and Shift, select this edge and select this edge. We might have to select this edge as well. Right click, mark seam. So now if we press A, UV, unwrap, you can see that now we've separated these areas. Now if you want to keep your UV map in view at all times, instead of just having to press A all the time to select all the face and have that be in view, we can actually press these up here, UV sync selection. And that way, once we click off, the UV still stays there. Another thing that we want to do is in this window, we want to press N, and then under View, Overlays, and we want to tick Stretching. And we can just press N again to get rid of that menu. So we essentially want most of our UVs to be dark blue. All of the light blue areas means that they're stretching. And some of the green areas means there's a lot of stretching. So we definitely need to fix these areas. So what we're going to do is, so we're going to left click here, hold down Control, left click here, hold down Shift, left click here, hold down Control, left click here, hold down Shift, hold down Control, hold down Shift, hold down Control. And we're going to do this to all of our corners here. Once we've done that, right click, mark seam. Then we want to press A to select everything, U, unwrap. I can see that these light blue areas are now dark blue, and we essentially want dark blue everywhere. There are some light blue areas here, but because it's quite small detail, I think we're just going to leave it for the time being. It's not a big deal. And instead of us having to manually unwrap each time, I'm just going to go to UVs up here and live unwrap. So now every time we mark a seam, it's going to automatically unwrap instead of us having to unwrap it manually. So I'm going to select edges on this side here. So I'm going to select this edge here, hold down Control, select this edge, and on the other side, Shift select this edge, hold down Control, left click here. And then in this window, right click, mark seam. And you can see that it's automatically unwrapped because we have live unwrap on. So there's no green spots or green areas here, so I think we're fine to move on. Okay, so we're gonna do this UV slightly different. Okay, so I'm gonna apply some seams down here. So I'm gonna hold down Shift, Alt. I'm gonna follow this edge. So left click and holding down Shift and Alt. Just gonna follow this edge. Right click, mark seam. And I'm also just gonna add another seam over here. So hold down Shift, left click, hold down Control, left click. And then on this side, hold down Shift, hold down Control, left click, mark seam. So I've got the base of the crate UV mapped. I'm gonna tab out of it. I'm gonna select the latch, press tab. I'm gonna hit / on the numpad just to isolate it. I'm gonna press A to select everything. And I'm gonna press the decimal key on the numpad or the dot key. And this makes it much easier for me to be able to rotate around it. So I'm gonna hold down Alt, left click, mark seam over there. Left click here. Control, left click here. Hold down Shift, left click, Control, left click, hold down Shift, hold down Control, hold down Shift and hold down Control. I'm gonna mark another seam there. I'm gonna press Tab, then / on the numpad, and I'm gonna essentially do this for all of the objects. I'm gonna select this one, Tab, / on the numpad, I'm gonna press A, and then the decimal key on the numpad. I'm gonna hold down Shift, left click on all of these while holding down Shift, right click, mark seam, Tab, / on the numpad. So I'm going to select the handle, Tab, / on the numpad, press A, and then decimal key. I'm going to hold down Alt, select this edge, right click, and then mark seam. So if you're wondering what these blue lines are, they're essentially mark sharps. So after we applied the bevel and hardened the normals, it's kept these edges sharp. So just as a demonstration, if I press A and then clear the sharp, you can see that we've got a lot of shading issues, right? So marking the sharp pretty much helps with those shading issues. I just Control Z that. You can see the shading is much better now. So just press Tab, / /, select this object, tab, / on the numpad, A to select everything, press the decimal point on the numpad. If you want to turn these sharp edges off, you can just go into the overlays, and just turn off sharp. So I want to hold down Shift Alt, left click, Shift Alt, left click, right click, mark seam, tab, /, select this object, tab, /, press A to select everything, decimal point on the numpad, gonna hold down Alt, select this edge of the back, right click, mark seam. We're putting this seam at the back just because we want to hide our seams as much as possible. When it comes to programs like Substance Painter, it doesn't really matter too much where you put your seams, but if you're using something like Photoshop, then you can definitely have some pretty obvious seams that we definitely want to hide. / on the numpad, tab. I want to select this object, tab, / on the numpad, press A to select everything, decimal key. I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt, select this edge, Shift and Alt, select this edge, and also select this edge at the back. Right click, mark seam, / on the numpad, tab, select this object, tab, / on the numpad, press A to select everything, decimal key. We just want to select these edges here. So holding down Shift, left clicking, right click, mark seam, tab, /. So now we pretty much want to add all of the UV maps onto one island. So press A to select all the objects, tab to go to edit mode. For the time being, I'm going to turn off the stretching. So press N to get this menu up, turn off stretching, then press N again. So I'm going to press A to select everything, UV, and I'm going to first average island scale. So this determines how big the object is in real space and make sure that it keeps that same size in our UV space. So for example, this object here is quite large as opposed to this object, which is quite small. So this object is going to take up smaller space in the UV map depending on the size of the object. So now I'm going to press A again to select everything, UV, and then I'm going to pack islands. Now you can see that didn't do a very good job of packing the islands because we've still got a ton of UV space. So what I want to do is hover over some of these objects. For example, this one, I'm going to hover over it, press L. I'm going to hover over all of these ones, press L to select them. You can see it's also selecting other parts of the object. If I go into face mode, so press 3 to go into face mode, it only selects these ones. Press L while hovering over, G to move. I'm going to move them up for the time being. I'm also going to hover over these ones, press L, G, just to move them up, somewhere over here. So hover over this one, press L, G to move it up here, and press R to rotate, G to move, press L while hovering over, G to move over here, hover over this one, press L, G to move it over here, press R to rotate, move it in, select these ones, G, and I might just scale them just a bit. I'm going to select these ones, G, move them over here, just scale them up just a bit. Now that's definitely not a perfect UV map. There's still a ton of space that could be used. I might just scale these up just a bit. Then move these. Maybe scale them up just a tiny bit. So yeah, definitely not a great UV map, but because this object is pretty simple, we don't really need to occupy all of the space. Now, of course, if this model was going in like a game or into production or something, then we definitely want to utilize as much space as possible. But for this project, this works fine. So I'm going to press Tab and go back into layout mode. And that's our UV finished. So one final thing we want to do before we export is we want to check the face normals. So if I go over here to the overlay tab, turn on face orientation, you can see everything turns blue. but these areas here, these are red. So we've got an issue over here. So if I go back to overlay, turn that off, and go over here into shading, and turn on backface culling, you can see that everything else looks fine. But we have an issue over here. So if I select this hinge, and if I isolate it using / on the numpad, you can see that we can essentially see through the object over here. But if we go on this side, it's solid. So the normals are facing the wrong way. We want the normals to be facing on the outside and not on the inside. So pretty easy fix. If we press tab, press A to select everything, hold down shift and press N, we can see we've recalculated the normals. So now the face normals are facing on the outside and not the inside. So press tab, / on the numpad. So before we start texturing in Substance Painter, I just want to remove any materials that are applied to some of these models. So if I just go down here to material properties, if I select the base, you can see that there's a material on it. We don't want any materials on our object. So we can select the base, I'm going to hit this minus to remove the material slot. And I want to do this on all of our meshes. So this one, remove material. These ones don't have one. Need to do these. And these ones are fine as well. And that's pretty much it. We are now ready for export. So I'm going to go into File, Export, FBX. I'm going to select where I want it. So if I just go back, I've got a separate FBX folder where I can save it. So with these settings, I just turn on Mesh. There's only meshes here anyway, but just in case, that's the only object that I want exported. And I'm just going to turn off Bake Animation because there's no animations. Other than that, we can just name it Sci-fi Crate, Export, and then press Export. Hope you guys are having fun with this tutorial series. In part 4, we're going to import our model into Substance Painter and start our texturing. I'll see you guys then.